Ladies and gentlemen, this is Reaction. This is True Facts, the smartest slime by channel Z Frank. He put space in the Z Frank now and removed the one apparently. But okay. So yeah, this is a True Facts video. So obviously it's gonna be fun, right? It's gonna be filled with puns here and there, talking about Jerry, right? Back and forth with Jerry apparently. But is this going to be something that will scar me? What? I don't know. Slime. The word slime makes me think that. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to creep me out. Only experience I have about any animal or zoology type of videos is Frank, Tirzu, Casual Geographic that I've been reacting to. Otherwise, I don't Google them. I don't check YouTube or anything like that. That's it. This is all my information. So yeah, some insects can creep me out sometime, as previous video have clearly shown. But I don't know what's this gonna do. So let's watch it. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe. So I know which type of videos to react to more. I love videos like this, right? Because it's not something that I have knowledge of, right? Physics, sure. Astronomy, sure. Astrophysics, and all that, sure. Even mathematics, sure, right? But anything animal zoology, yeah, I have no knowledge about that. Only that I watch here. So always learn something here and there. So let's watch it.
This episode sponsored by Brilliant. Learn to think. This throbbing bloblet here is something called a plasmodial slime mold. It's not some unusual thing either. If you've taken a hike in the woods, chances are you've walked right by one and didn't even notice it. And why would you? We're so damn superior. Now, they don't look like much, do they? And you have to speed up the footage to see them move. But let's stop right here for a moment. You see that ant right there? That ant is made up of about 20 million cells. The forest loogie that it's standing on, you know how many cells that is? 1. It's a single big f***ing cell. And there's bigger ones too. Some species can get up to 3 feet across. Now, you've seen big cells before. The yolk of an egg is a single cell, for example. But I think you'd agree that the yolk of an egg can't exactly fend for itself. F***ing useless. And delicious. Jerry, enough with this footage, it's frightening. Well, this one's worse. It looks like a scab in a jacuzzi. But unlike the yolk of an egg, these single-celled plasmodial slime molds can do all sorts of things, including solving problems that humans have a hard time solving. People go to universities to study them. That's why you don't let your kids...
Remarkable probability of unicellular MO. What? This is real? You got to be shitting me.
Humans have a hard time solving. People go to universities to study them. That's why you don't let your kids get into science. They should be getting stoned and looking at lava lamps like the rest of us. But before we get to the incredible abilities of this smart snot, let's start from the beginning. This right here is sort of like a slime mold kindergarten. Slime molds aren't molds, but at this stage of their life, they resemble them because they start off as spores. And right here, there are thousands of spores. Yes, the snail is eating them, so kind of a bummer. But the babies who aren't getting murdered will be dispersed out into the world by the wind or passing insects. Whoa, that ant was spring-loaded. When the spore hatches, what comes out is one of these little jiggly things, a single-celled amoeba. Just around the size of the point of a pin. And they're cute. Look, this one looks happy. One of those 2 little googly eyes there is a nucleus. Just a refresher, inside the nucleus there's these little scrolls of DNA called chromosomes. And written on them is like a book of spells to make all the parts of a slime mold. Somewhere on those squiggles there's a recipe for mucus. Our nuclei have the same thing. Different spells, but written in the same language. It's not pretty. Here, I'll read you some. Got kukatukaka-at, atakakakugut, atakatakuka-akakata. And I'll stop right there. If I read the whole thing, you might grow an extra nipple. Anyway, these little amoebae have some cool spells. If you put them in water, a scenario where I'd get shrinkage...
Yeah, most life's DNA and cell is similar in a way, obviously. So yeah, it's not surprising. But I didn't know it was a singular cell, right? This slimes. Alright, every time I go to woods and I see something slimy thing, yeah, I'm gonna think about this. Because he was true, he was right there. I've never thought of this. I was thinking, what is this slime? I don't know, some animal left it or something. I always thought that, like some waste of something. I never realized it's a life.
They grow a willy. Actually, 2 of them. They're called flagella. Helps them move and catch food. Look at that, they're little shapeshifters. And when it gets dry again, they can transform right back into that amoeba shape, which always looks like it's been dropped from a great height. Little moving splat. To eat, it just sort of surrounds food and pulls little bubbles into its body. It's like if you could just sit down on a bag of Doritos and... Well, I don't mean... forget it. Now, if one of these amoebae meets another one that's sexually compatible, they skip the dating and move right in together. The two cells fuse...
What was that movie, right? Old, very old movie. I don't know, forgot the name of it, which was also like slime type of thing. It was an alien that came from space or something, right? It was like a slimy type of thing, right? First time it killed, it turned red, right? And it just kills one after another. It was a horror type movie. This reminds me of that shit, right? I mean, I don't know how many people have watched that, but when you watch something like that and see something moves like this, it always creeps you out, right? The movie was very simplistic, but it was kind of smart because, like this shows, it mimics something real. And if you amplify that, create it as an alien, right? Using science and then, changing something here and there is always fun, rather than just completely make up shit from the scratch.
And their nuclei fuse too. Now you got two sets of spells in there. You can imagine the arguments. But so far, it's the same as how we do it. A sperm cell fuses with an egg cell and the nuclei fuse, then preggers, and then we start to grow. But here's the difference. When we grow, our cells divide. To make one cell into two, first the nucleus makes a copy of all of its chromosomes. Then those copies pull apart, and the whole cell sort of pinches itself off. Now you got yourself two cells, each one with a nucleus that has all the chromosomes. Whoa, did you see that? It looked like the scream of a night demon. Well, slime molds don't give a shit. They do it different. Look at this.
Yes, Frank, just the channel come to if you want to learn about anything biological and get scarred in the process.
Nuclei divide, the cell doesn't divide with them. And now you got yourself a cell with two nuclei, the nerve, and then they do it again at the same time too, like little synchronized swimmers.
Getting crowded over
look
here.
At them. And it keeps going, and you know where that's headed, a fuck ton of nuclei, and pretty soon you got yourself a big-ass cell. All those nuclei start making these proteins that have the ability to link up, and when they do, they start forming these tubes. The proteins are the same ones we have in our muscles, and so the tubes can contract. And if one part contracts, then its neighbors do too. And that creates these pulsing waves that travel through the slime mold, pushing all this liquidy stuff through these throbbing tubes. And the whole thing's
It's
got
a
a
hive
rhythm
mind.
to it. First, all the crap flows one way, and then it turns right around and flows the other way. And this back and forth business is why they look like they're breathing when you speed them up. The pressure from these tubes can push the leading edge of a slime mold outwards. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This species, for example, Physarum polycephalum, creates these little fan fingers that play touchy-touchy with the world. Remember, there's no brain controlling all of this. More like patterns of contractions. If you put an eye drop of food stank in front of it, those patterns change. The tubes in that area start going crazy, and the whole cell sort of reorganizes, pulling material away.
I mean, we're learning things about, things like this all the time, right? Even the knowledge we have, the knowledge usually gets expanded. Rarely we come across where we realize our knowledge was wrong. It's just basically half a knowledge, right? It's some new information just expand that knowledge. So we could learn in the future, even though there is no mind, it could be some kind of a hive mind thing that is, I guess, doing all this shit. And maybe not. But yes, every time I see pulsating things like this, I don't know why it creeps me out. I guess Hollywood did that shit, right? Because I can't even remember any movies or something that I watched, but this just creeping me out. Like pulsating thing just grows, play horror music in the background. There you go.
From the useless tubes and pumping up the ones that are connected to the num-nums. And all that pressure pushes the slime mold in that direction. All right, simple enough. The booger can move towards food. But food isn't always plopped right in front of you in nature. So what happens when a science hippie blocks the beeline with one of these barriers? We'll get to that in a moment after a brief word about our sponsor. Brilliant.org is an effective and refreshing way to learn science,
That's what I want to
math,
ask
and
about.
computer science. Listen, if a single-celled slime mold can solve all sorts of problems without even having a brain, then I'm sure you can learn anything you want to if you put your giant noggin to it.
What's your
But it helps
excuse,
to have
eh?
a great partner. Brilliant lets you go at your own pace. It has thousands of interactive lessons that break down big concepts into bite-sized bits that you can understand. The courses on computer science fundamentals, and especially the ones about algorithms, can show you how a series of simple rules repeated and can create some very complex outcomes. And that can help you understand all sorts of things, from how slime molds move to why your TikTok feed is filled with all those, well, whatever it's filled with. And if that doesn't float your boat, there are tons more courses from beginner to advanced that'll help build your confidence and knowledge about the world around you. To get started for free, visit brilliant.org/ZayFrank or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. Brilliant has been a long-time sponsor of this show, and I'm a fan. Check them out. Visit Brilliant today. Where were we? Oh, right.
Hi.
So the problem here is that if the slime mold just keeps moving to where the food signal is stronger, it'll get stuck. But slime mold don't get stuck. You know why? Because it knows where it's already been. You know in the fairy tales when they leave breadcrumbs behind? It's like that, but instead of breadcrumbs, it's mucus. The slime mold leaves behind a film of snot, sort of an external map of where it's been. The mucus kind of cancels out the food signal and it tries a new direction. Using this strategy, it can solve a maze. But what's amazing, Kilme, is that the solution it settles on tends to be the shortest path through the maze. If you put food down in a bunch of different places, it finds the overall shortest path between all of them. Remember, we're talking about a single cell with no brain. Some science hippies in Japan were like, all right, if you're so smart, try and design a whole railway system. They put food on a map at each train destination and plopped a slime mold right on top of Tokyo. Think very low-budget Godzilla movie. The slime mold did its thing, but then they realized that it had made paths right through a lake and over some mountains. So they did it clever. They created a surface that let light through where there were natural obstacles on the map. Slime molds hate light. It hurts them, so they avoided those areas. On that surface, the slime mold created this network. And here is the actual radar system. When they looked at the slime mold's solution in terms of how much it would cost, how quick you could get places, and how it did if a part of it broke, it did just as well as the one that the peoples made, without all the college debt. I mean, they're very efficient hunters, aren't they? And they're hungry. Oh, that's nasty. But don't worry, they won't nibble on your toesies, I don't think, because they're picky. They like protein and some carbs. They avoid the salt, hence the no-no on the pepperoni. And they love the oat flakes. Heart-healthy diet, really. Sure, they might have a cheat day now and then, but who doesn't? If you give them a little buffet...
No. Oh, no. Why'd you have to do that experiment, man? He just traveled through whole Japan, through the sea and water. What the fuck? It hates light. Yeah, see, you don't need much of imagination to create this into a horror movie, right? Vampire style fucking slime, hates light, consumes everything, just knows where to go, fastest route.
Where none of the food has their preferred ratio of proteins to carbs, they'll blend two food sources to the right proportions. I can't even do that. Remember how I told you they avoid salt, right? Well, that can change. If you make them crawl across a salt bridge to get their food, eventually they get used to it, and they'll crawl on a salt surface like a little badass.
So they're picky, right? They prefer not to, but they can. That's what it is.
It's a kind of learning, isn't it? But here's the crazy part. Slime molds confuse with other slime molds. The veins just kind of merge into each other. Ooh, that's satisfying. No, Jerry, it's not sexy. All right, maybe it's a little bit sexy.
So one day they will evolve and hunt living things. Then we are fucked. In 100, 200 years, some alien comes around and it's only slime. What happened here? Nobody knows. Are there anyone alive here, humans or anything? We don't know. It's probably food now.
But here's the kicker. If a slime mold that has learned to crawl over salt merges with one that hasn't, it passes on that knowledge. Look at this. The one in the middle was never trained to crawl over salt. But after fusing with two that were, it's the first one to cross the salt bridge. They can transfer friggin' knowledge to each other. It's like a Vulcan mind meld. Turns out Scarecrow didn't need a brain after all, just had to snort one of these. These abilities allow slime molds to cope with all the crazy-ass shit that nature throws at them. If it gets too cold or too dry, they can dry out too. They go into a dormant state called a sclerotium. Sounds like a fancy scrotum. No, Jerry, it doesn't look like a scrotum. Well, it does look a little like a scrotum. Anyway, if you just add some water and food, these come back to life again, and they're right back to it.
This is not horror show.
Until one day they're big enough and the conditions are right to make the babies. The nuclei, which have divided and divided and now can be in the millions, go through one final division. But this time, instead of making an exact copy of themselves, they divide up their genetic material and give half to one and half to the other, like a divorced couple splitting up their books and video games. The resulting nuclei encase themselves into a little tough shell, a spore, like a baby in a basket. The spores are often woven into intricate lattices and beautiful structures, studded with all those little fruits. And the rest of the slime mold, which has spent most of its life looking like misplaced ejaculate, finally has a chance to shine. Each species does it in their own way. Some raise their little babies up in the air on little stalks. Others create shag carpets of beautifully tangled fuzz. For the insects, whole forests emerge and bloom, and they walk under iridescent baubles and furry little plumes, all of which slowly dry out and crumble as the little babies are carried away by the wind. Or they get eaten by a snail. It's less of an inspirational ending that way. It's more of a slaughter, really. I mean, that's what you get when...
All right. Every time you watch videos like this, some things you need to expect there, right? What is that phobia thing, right? The whole phobia. The hive, looking at the hive, creating the creepy feeling phobia. I don't have that, but it still creeps me out. I don't know why. Because I heard about that phobia too much, I guess. It's I guess, suggestive thing, right? If something suggests you should be creeped out by that, even if you don't have phobia, you'll start to feel some symptoms. So, damn, this is just fucked up. Seriously, man, this is scary shit, right? This slime, at smaller scale, I'm like, okay, fine, but that experiment in the Japan, that just scared me, right? How they just spread through the fucking Japan like that, like, goddamn. And they're like, what if one day they evolve and they actively hunt living things? I know this is like a horror movie shit, like, why would that happen? Yeah, what if that does happen, right? They hit light, right? They go dormant, right? This is as a horror as horror can be. Obviously, they've been probably around for a long time, right? Things like this have been around for a long time. But yeah, it's scary thinking about that. But apart from that Hollywood horror shit, yeah, this was informative, right? Every time I see something like this, I'm like, what is that? Is that some kind of a plant, something? But no, but it's some kind of a slime.
When you're slower than a snail, isn't it? Snails like a cheetah to these poor bastards. No, Jerry, what I'm saying is if you said, here, solve this maze, and what I gave back to you looked like this, you wouldn't say I was smart, you'd say I was a pervert. I'm saying it's a double standard. Well, yes, of course, it'd still be impressive. It's like Satan's caviar. I mean, it looks like what I thought STIs were when I was 10. It looks like a smoker's lung on Pop Rocks. Looks like a goth sinus infection. Looks like what happens when my dog gets into the blueberries.
Oh, God. This is where the inspiration from Venom comes from, let's be honest. The movie thing, right? Slime. God. Wait a minute. The movie I'm thinking of, is it called Blob? I don't know. But yeah, there you go, people. True facts, the smartest slime. This was creepy, somewhat, right? It wasn't completely, right? Not as much as I would get creeped out by insects or something, cockroaches and shit. But yeah, this was creepy enough. Just because of the properties. Right, people? If you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.